Right now, in the Kalahari Desert, a sand bushman is walking through 95-degree heat, wearing almost nothing. No shoes, no shirt, a small leather wrap around his waist. He has been walking for 4 hours, and he is not struggling. His body is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Your body was designed to do the same thing. You just forgot how. The story of why humans started wearing clothes is not a story about modesty. It is not a story about shame. It is a story about one of the most catastrophic environmental shifts in human history, and the single invention that allowed your ancestors to survive it. Let's start with the body you were born with. Your skin is extraordinary. It is the largest organ in your body. It regulates temperature, produces vitamin D, detects pressure and pain, and keeps everything inside you from falling out. For the first several million years of human evolution, it did all of this completely exposed. No fabric, no leather, nothing between your skin and the world. Your early ancestors were covered in fur. Every primate is. Chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, all of them wear the same thick coat evolution provided. For animals living in dense forest canopies, fur makes sense. It protects against scratches, insulates at night, and provides camouflage. Then, around 2 million years ago, something happened. Your ancestors moved out of the forests and onto the open savanna, and the fur became a problem. Running on an open plain under direct African sunlight generates enormous amounts of body heat. A thick fur coat traps that heat. For short sprints, this is manageable. But early humans were not sprinters. They were persistence hunters, following wounded animals for hours, sometimes days, across open ground under full sun. To do that, you need to shed heat faster than you generate it. The solution evolution arrived at was radical. Strip the fur, replace it with sweat glands, millions of them, spread across the entire body surface. Humans have more sweat glands per square inch than almost any other animal on Earth. Sweat evaporates from bare skin far more efficiently than from fur. The result is a cooling system so effective that a human can outrun a horse over a long enough distance. We know this happened because of lice. Human head lice and human body lice are two different species. They diverged, became separate species, at a specific point in history. Body lice can only live in clothing. They evolved from head lice at the moment humans started wearing enough fabric to give them a permanent habitat. DNA analysis of body lice puts that divergence at roughly 170,000 years ago. Before that point, there was nothing to live in. No clothes, just skin. So for the first roughly 2 million years of human evolution, your ancestors wore nothing at all. This is harder to imagine than it sounds. Not because it is shocking, but because your brain has been so thoroughly conditioned to associate nakedness with vulnerability that it feels wrong. But your ancestors were not vulnerable. They were perfectly calibrated for the climate they lived in. Dark skin that managed UV radiation. Sweat glands that managed heat. A body that had been refined over millions of years for exactly the conditions it was living in. The trouble started when they left. Around 100,000 years ago, modern humans began moving out of Africa, north and east, into environments they had never encountered, into landscapes where the temperature dropped at night below anything the African savanna ever produced, into winters, into snow, into cold that a naked human body, however well designed for the tropics, simply could not survive. This is where clothing begins, not as fashion, not as modesty, as a survival technology more important than fire. The first clothes were almost certainly animal hides. A freshly killed animal provides a large, warm, waterproof covering that can be wrapped around a body within hours of the kill. There is no tool required, no skill required that a human did not already have. You skin the animal, you wear the skin. Researchers believe this happened long before the body lice evidence suggests, possibly 500,000 years ago or more, before modern humans, during the time of our earlier relatives. A Neanderthal living in Ice Age Europe with no clothing would not have survived a single winter. And Neanderthals survived in Europe for over 300,000 years. They were not naked. But raw animal hide has a problem. Fresh hide is warm. It is also stiff, heavy, and begins to rot within days. It shrinks as it dries, it cracks, it smells. A raw hide is not clothing in any durable sense. It is a temporary solution to an immediate problem. Turning raw hide into something wearable requires processing. You scrape the fat from the underside. You work the hide repeatedly, pulling, folding, twisting, to break down the fibers and make it soft. You might treat it with animal brains, which contain oils that preserve and soften the leather. This process is called tanning, and doing it well takes hours of physical labor per hide. The oldest known tool specifically designed for hide working is a bone scraper found in Morocco, dating to roughly 120,000 years ago. By the time humans were leaving Africa in large numbers, hide processing was already a refined skill. Somebody had to teach it, somebody had to learn it, and that knowledge had to travel with every group that moved into a new environment. Then came the needle. The oldest known sewing needle is 50,000 years old. It was found in a cave in Siberia. It is made from bird bone, 3 centimeters long, with a tiny hole at one end. It is precise enough to thread. It is small enough to sew close seams. This changes everything. Wrapped hide keeps you alive. Sewn clothing keeps you warm. A stitched garment fits the body, traps air against the skin, covers openings at the neck and wrists where heat escapes. The difference between a draped hide and a sewn coat is the difference between surviving a Siberian winter and thriving in one. Researchers believe the invention of the needle is one of the primary reasons modern humans were able to colonize cold environments that no earlier human species had ever successfully occupied. The groups that crossed into northeastern Asia and eventually into the Americas did so wearing fitted sewn garments that gave them a thermal advantage no other animal had. The needle did not just make clothes. It made the human presence in the northern hemisphere possible. But clothing was never only about warmth. The moment humans began decorating their bodies, clothing became something else entirely. Red ochre, a pigment made from iron-rich rock, has been found at human sites dating back 300,000 years. Shell beads strung as jewelry appear at sites 130,000 years old. Body modification, tattooing, scarification. Evidence of all of these practices appears in the archaeological record long before the first woven fabric. Humans did not start covering their bodies and then start decorating them. They were decorating bare skin long before they had anything to put fabric on. When clothing arrived, it absorbed everything skin had been used to communicate: status, group membership, age, marital status, spiritual role. The Neanderthal sites in Europe contain evidence of eagle feathers and animal claws collected not for food, but for wearing. A Neanderthal dressed in eagle feathers and bear claws was not keeping warm. He was saying something. Your ancestors were making statements with what they wore before they had language precise enough to say the same things out loud. So here is the full answer. For the first 2 million years, humans wore nothing. Their bodies were built for it. Then climate pushed them into cold environments their bare skin could not survive. Hide came first, draped, wrapped, immediate. Then processed leather, then the needle, then fitted garments that made the coldest places on Earth survivable. And running through all of it, from the very beginning, something that had nothing to do with survival. The need to signal who you were, what group you belonged to, what you had done, what you were worth. You still do this every morning. You stand in front of a wardrobe full of options, and you choose what you want the world to think about you before you have said a single word. You do it so automatically that it does not feel like a decision. It is 300,000 years old, and it started the same way everything human started, with someone cold, trying to survive, reaching for the nearest thing that could help.